Can you imagine thousands of tanks out here in this valley, rumbling, fighting, firing?
This is the Middle East, a region of diverse cultures and religions, but also a region of ongoing sectarian issues.
Is there an endgame? Where does this stop, and when and how?
One of the most prominent issues is between Israel and Palestine. Both sides have historical and religious ties to the same land, which they consider as their rightful homeland.
We're here forever to protect the freedom and peace for Israel and all those who are being under assault.
The origins of this issue go back to the early 20th century, when the Jewish people sought refuge and self-determination in the land that is now Israel.
Jerusalem will remain Israel's undivided, very important, undivided capital.
But this land was also inhabited by the Palestinians, who had their own national aspirations. In today's video, we'll explore the real reason why Israel wants Palestine's land. Hamas's surprise. Attack on Israel, how it happened, and what it means. Hamas is a Palestinian militant group that controls the Gaza Strip, a small coastal territory that is blockaded by Israel and Egypt. Hamas has been fighting against Israel for decades, claiming to represent the Palestinian people and their right to self-determination. Israel considers Hamas a terrorist organization that seeks to destroy it and endanger its citizens. On October 7, 2023, Hamas launched a massive and coordinated offensive against Israel, using rockets, drones, boats, and tunnels to infiltrate and attack Israeli towns and military bases near the Gaza border. The attack was timed to coincide with several Jewish holidays, including Sukkot and Yom Kippur, when many Israelis were off work and celebrating with their families. The attack caught Israel off guard and caused widespread panic and chaos. Over 1,200 Israelis were killed in the first day of the attack, most of them civilians, including women and children. Hundreds more were wounded, abducted, or missing. Israel responded with a fierce and deadly bombardment of the Gaza Strip, called Operation Iron Swords, targeting Hamas's military infrastructure, rocket launchers, command centers, and tunnels. Israel also imposed a total blockade on Gaza, cutting off all access to electricity, water, food, and medical supplies. Israel also ordered the evacuation of northern Gaza, including Gaza City, where most of the population lives. Israel said it was acting in self-defense and aimed to stop Hamas's aggression and restore security for its citizens. The attack by Hamas and the response by Israel triggered a new cycle of warfare and escalation in the region, as well as international condemnation and calls for a ceasefire. The United Nations, the United States, the European Union, and other countries expressed their concern over the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and the loss of innocent lives on both sides. They urged both parties to end the constant warfare and resume negotiations for a peaceful solution. However, as of now, the war is still ongoing, with no sign of stopping. The number of casualties has risen to over 7,000 Palestinians and 1,400 Israelis, making it one of the deadliest conflicts in recent history. Millions of people have been displaced or affected by the war, facing shortages of food, water, medicine, and shelter. The situation is dire and desperate for both sides, but all of this loss of life and infrastructure did not start overnight. As we can see in the next chapter, the struggle for national identity between Israel and Palestine goes way back in history. The Jewish journey, from ancient roots to modern dreams. The Israel-Palestine conflict started in the Babylonia period, around 587 BCE, when Babylonia was good for the Jewish people. But the Assyrian kingdom took over Israel in 722 BC, and many Jews fled to Judah. They showed their resilience and legacy. The Jewish people faced many exiles and tragedies in history and spread across the world. Some found shelter in places like India, where a small but strong Jewish community survived. Others lived in Europe, where they kept their culture and faith. But these events hurt the Jewish people, and they lost many of their own. The once united community broke into many pieces, and their once rich lives became a legend. Under the harsh rule of the Roman, Ottoman, and other empires, the Jewish people were one of the biggest groups without a homeland. But things changed after many wars, and something unexpected happened to another group. Little did they know, their world was about to change forever, as a result of new encroaching movements. One of these movements was Zionism. the idea of creating a Jewish state in their ancestral land. And one of the pioneers of this movement was Theodor Herzl, the man who saw the future. Theodor Herzl and the Birth of Zionism, the Jewish quest for a homeland in Palestine. Theodor Herzl was a Hungarian Jewish author who wrote a book called The Jewish State in 1896. In this book, he outlined his ideas and plans for creating a homeland for the Jewish people who had suffered centuries of oppression and persecution in different parts of the world. He believed that the only way to end their misery was to have their own country, where they could live in peace and dignity. He proposed Palestine as the location for the Jewish state, based on historical and religious grounds. He argued that Palestine was the original home of the Jewish people, where they had lived for thousands of years before being exiled by various conquerors. He also claimed that Palestine had a special significance for the Jewish faith, as it was the place where many of their prophets and kings had lived, and where their holy sites were located. He thought that his vision would come true within 50 years, and he worked hard to make it happen. He organized the first Zionist Congress in Basel, Switzerland in 1897, where he gathered like-minded people who shared his goal. He became the leader of the Zionist movement, which aimed to establish a Jewish state in Palestine through political and diplomatic means. But why Palestine? What made it so special and controversial? Palestine was not an empty land, waiting for the Jews to return. It was already inhabited by other people who had their own history and culture. They were the Arabs, who also had a strong connection to Palestine, as it was part of their ancestral homeland and their religious heritage. They did not welcome the idea of a Jewish state in their midst, and they resisted it with all their might. This is how the conflict between the Jews and the Arabs began, and how it continues to this day. Let's find out more about this conflict in the next part of our journey. Why Palestine? The ancient land that sparked the conflict. The world was shattered by 2 world wars, but the Jewish community suffered more than anyone. Millions perished or were left scarred, facing the worst atrocity to humanity in history. Many escaped to Palestine, hoping to start a new life. They showed their strength and courage despite the hardships. After the Ottoman Empire collapsed, Britain took over Palestine, and they made a huge mistake. They thought they could fix the world by drawing lines on a map. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. The Jewish immigrants in Palestine became a political force, the Zionist movement. They convinced many European politicians to support a Jewish state in Palestine. Some, like Arthur Balfour, said it was the best thing for the Jewish people. Others, like David Lloyd George, hoped it would bring back Jesus, but they all ignored the people who already lived in Palestine. Imagine this, a land full of mystery and religion, a place where ancient stories and holy traditions are part of its essence. This is Palestine, a land chosen not only for its religion, but for its location. The European leaders knew that Palestine was out of their control. It was a free land waiting to be claimed, but they didn't want to give it to just anyone. Imagine a community wanting a country of their own, a community with a rich history, connected to the land of Palestine. It makes sense that they would want to make their state in a land that means so much to them. The European leaders saw this as an opportunity. They thought that giving Palestine to the community, as a Jewish state, would work well. After all, what better way to respect the history of a people than by letting them have their old home? The choice of Palestine was not only about religion. It was a strategic decision based on the location and the value of the land for the community. It was a decision that would change history and give hope to those who dreamed of a place to call their own. With Europe's help, the Jewish community in Palestine became stronger. Many got money from others to build big businesses, which funded their army, the Haganah. Jewish representative wanted a country where the Europeans wanted to get rid of a community from their continent and gain an ally at the same time. Britain took out their troops from Palestine and set up the perfect opportunity for the Jewish people to take over a country that decided to host them. And as Palestine fell at the hands of Jews and the suffering of millions of Palestinians began, this was just the beginning of their catastrophe. Nakba, the catastrophe. The Nakba is an Arabic word that means catastrophe. It is the name given to the terrible event that happened to the Palestinians in 1948, when the State of Israel was created. This event changed the lives of the Palestinians forever, as they lost their homes, lands, and everything they had. In 1948, there was a war between the Jews and the Arabs over the land of Palestine. The Jews wanted to make a country for themselves because they had suffered a lot in other places. The Arabs wanted to keep their land because they had lived there for a long time. The war was very chaotic and cruel, and many people passed away or got hurt. The Jews had more weapons and support than the Arabs, and they took over most of the land. They forced many Palestinians to leave their homes and villages, or they destroyed them with fire and bombs. Some Palestinians ran away because they were afraid, and some stayed and fought back, but they could not stop the Jews from taking their land. The Nakba made about 700,000 Palestinians homeless and refugees. They had to go to other countries or places where they lived in camps with little food, water, or medicine. They became very poor and sad, and they missed their homes and lands. The Nakba also made them angry and determined to get their rights and freedom back. The Nakba is a very important and sad part of the Palestinian history and identity. It reminds them of what they lost and what they want. It also makes them proud of their culture and faith. The Nakba is a big problem for the peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians because they have different stories and feelings about it. While Israel celebrates its birthday, Palestine cries for its loss and pain. As we have seen, the Nakba was a tragic event that marked the beginning of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But how did the State of Israel come into existence in the first place? And why did it decide to build a fortress instead of a country? These are the questions we will try to answer in this part of our journey. We will look at the historical and political forces that shaped Israel's creation and its security-oriented mindset. The origins and consequences of Israel's fortress mentality. Theodor Herzl predicted that the Jewish people would have their own country in 50 years. He was right. Israel was born on Palestine's land in 51 years. David Ben-Gurion, the leader of the Jewish militia and representative, became the first prime minister of Israel. But the Arabs did not like this. Palestine was a holy and spiritual place for the Muslims. They lost the second oldest mosque and suffered a lot. They hated Israel and fought against it with many Muslim countries. But Israel had war skills and support from Europe. Many countries stayed out of it because of the Jews' role in World War II. Israel fought well and took half of Egypt's land, which they gave back later for peace. Israel knew it had to be strong to keep its independence. It had good relations with Europe and built a powerful military force. It trained its people to fight and used advanced technology. Israel also got financial aid from many countries because Palestine was important for them. Israel fought a lot with its neighbors: Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Egypt. It protected itself by controlling key areas in the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and Golan Heights. These areas helped Israel defend against attacks and smuggling. It was like chess, where Israel had the upper hand. But it was not a game. It was a matter of life and mortality for millions of people. And there was another threat: Hamas, a new militia group from Palestine. But why is Palestine so important? What makes it a rich geographical paradise? Let's find out in the next chapter. A rich geographical paradise. Some people think that Europe supports Israel because of its rich natural resources. Imagine a land where amazing treasures are hidden under the surface, waiting to be discovered. In this fascinating part of the world, the Dead Sea reveals its secret stash of valuable minerals, attracting explorers from far and wide. But that's not all. Nearby, the Sea of Galilee and the mountain aquifer generously offer plenty of fresh water, satisfying the thirst of a nation. And as if that weren't enough, the huge Negev desert holds within its sandy embrace precious fossil fuel reserves, a true gift from Mother Nature herself. Israel uses these resources to be wealthy and powerful in a region where they are scarce and coveted. The Dead Sea has potash and bromine, which are minerals that have many uses and benefits. Israel extracts and processes them, creating a booming economy. Potash is used to make fertilizers, explosives, soap, glass, and many other products. It is also essential for plant growth and human health. Bromine is used to make flame retardants, pesticides, pharmaceuticals, and water treatment chemicals. It is also important for nerve function and hormone production. These minerals are in high demand worldwide, and Israel is one of the leading producers and exporters of them. In fact, the Dead Sea accounts for about 8% of Israel's total industrial output. The Sea of Galilee and the mountain aquifer have fresh water, which is a vital resource for life. Israel drinks, farms, and exports crops with it. It nourishes the land, quenches the thirst of its people, and fuels the growth of agriculture, a cornerstone of the nation's economy. The Sea of Galilee is the largest freshwater lake in Israel. It is also a major source of drinking water for the country. The mountain aquifer is an underground reservoir that spans from the Galilee to the Negev. It supplies about 40% of Israel's domestic water consumption. These freshwater sources are vital for Israel's survival in a region where water is scarce and often contested. They also enable Israel to cultivate crops such as citrus fruits, olives, grapes, dates, almonds, and cotton, which are exported to many countries around the world. The Negev Desert covers about 60% of Israel's land area, but it is home to only 8% of its population. It is mostly arid and inhospitable, but it also conceals vast deposits of natural gas and oil shale. Natural gas is a clean-burning fossil fuel that can be used to generate electricity, heat homes, and power vehicles. Oil shale is a type of rock that contains organic matter that can be converted into liquid petroleum. These fossil fuels are abundant and cheap sources of energy that can reduce Israel's reliance on imported oil. The Negev Desert has natural gas and oil shale, which are sources of energy that give Israel an edge over its neighbors. Israel burns, heats, and drives with them. These fuels help Israel be independent from foreign oil and save money on energy costs. These resources make Israel rich and strong in a region where they are rare and wanted. They also make Palestine important for many countries who want to have access to them or control them. That's why Europe supports Israel in this conflict. The Negev Desert is 60% of Israel's land, but only 8% of its people live there. It is dry and harsh, but it has a lot of energy, and a lot of energy means a huge edge over your opponent in battle. The Israel-Palestine conflict is a serious and worrying problem. Israel's extreme actions have hurt the Palestinians, but the Palestinians have resisted, wanting their land back. The future looks worrisome for both sides, but we can make a difference. We must talk, help, and stand up for everyone in this conflict. Together, we can make a difference in our quest for peace as we continue seeking answers from the seemingly unknown, mysterious, and the terrific on The Scientific.